So, I want to talk about obscure games. So, I dug up this old YouTube channel and learned how to use Adobe Premiere. So, let's get started. The year is 2006, and Nintendo had just released The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess as a launch title for the Wii. Internally, after the game's release, the development team started to decide on what project they wanted to take on next, eventually landing on making a side story to Twilight Princess. Apparently, the team had originally envisioned something grander, akin to the base game, but eventually the project was scaled back and it was decided to design the game around the Wii Zapper accessory, which was in development around the same time. The game would become a typical light gun style shooter, putting players in the role of Link, though now wielding a crossbow as opposed to the series' staple sword and shield, which I think is a really smart idea, since it's always been shown or implied that each Link returns the Master Sword to its resting place after its role has been served. So this side story to revolve around Link training himself in a new form of combat is genuinely a really nice idea. The game would be showcased at a few events prior to launch, but eventually the final game, titled Link's Crossbow Training, released on November 19th, 2007 in North America, as a pack-in title for the Wii Zapper. And that's about all there is to say about this game before its launch, which just leaves the game itself. The multi-million seller with generally average reviews and a fairly poor reputation. But who knows, it could still be good. Starting up the game brings us to the title screen, where there are three main options: Score Attack, the single-player campaign, Multiplayer, and Practice. Hopping into Score Attack, we select a Mii to represent our save file, and then it's on to the level select. Link's Crossbow Training is separated into 9 main levels, which are then each divided into 3 sections each. Across the game, there are 3 major types of gameplay. There are on-rail segments where you're shooting at targets from a fixed point, defender segments where you're stationary but you have to protect yourself against oncoming enemies, and ranger segments that play from a third-person perspective where you have full control of Link, though most levels shake up the order and don't follow the rest one-to-one. Now the story in this game is that there isn't one. At all. No plot anywhere in the game, not in the manual, the back of the case, nothing. So the title really just sums it up. It's just Link's Crossbow Training. Also, despite the game being a pack-in for it, I don't own a Wii Zapper, so this third-party Wii shotgun will have to do. Starting up the first level, we open on a village and targets start sporadically showing up. You get more points if you hit either closer to the center of a target or if you hit multiple targets back to back. You can also hit non-target items in the environment like scarecrows, or in true Zelda fashion, you can terrorize random people's pottery. After a minute and a few camera changes later, our score gets tallied up and we're on to the next phase, which is set in the Gerudo Desert, which makes for a fun shake-up from the previous calm village atmosphere. The enemies approach in waves, giving you plenty of opportunities to create combo. The mechanic unique to these segments are these green enemies, where killing them grants you temporary rapid fire, although by result, this rapid fire can make it harder to land consecutive hits on enemies, which means your score won't be as high if you don't land perfect shots. Once time runs out, we're thrown into the third and final section of the level, where you're placed into an enemy camp with a counter for how many enemies there are to defeat. Something to bring up now is that in all of these phases, a gold rupee can sometimes appear when you break a pot, and hitting it gives you a pretty good amount of points. The enemies can be a bit hard to find at first, with them kind of blending in with the scenery sometimes. But anyways, after defeating all the enemies, the first level is complete and we're given our total score. Moving on to the second level, we're dropped into another target shooting stage with a bunch of Gorons. Not much really happens in this phase, but it's kind of funny how stoically the Gorons stand while they're holding their targets. The round ends and we're brought to a defender segment where we're now on a canoe traveling down a river. There are fish. I ended up getting a really high score on this stage somehow, but to close out this level is a simple round of shooting skulls. It's kind of like the clay pigeon mode in the original Duck Hunt, where you get more points the quicker you hit the target. It's also here where I found out you can press the Z button to zoom in, even though it's literally been in the bottom corner of the screen this whole time. Anyways, level 3 starts with a round of shooting targets in another village, which is weirdly making me realize that a lot of this game's stage design is probably references to Twilight Princess. A game I haven't played. Oh no. Next is a unique round of shooting fruit balloons that split into smaller balloons when you hit them, and then eventually just explode like fireworks. And then meteors just start randomly raining down. That's about all there is to say about the stage, other than it looks pretty nice. Finally, this level closes off with a defender segment with some birds. And with that, we're officially 1/3 of the way through the game. And what do you know, it's actually been pretty good. I've enjoyed how varied the environments are and how responsive the controls have been. Moving into level 4, we begin with a target shooting round where the targets are coming down on waterfalls, which leads to some pretty unique placement and movement patterns for the targets. Next up is a pretty basic defender segment taking place in a graveyard, but the level concludes with a ranger-style stage that introduces some new enemies. Following that, level 5 starts off with a really strong opening stage where you're shooting these horrifying half-bird, half-human head monstrosities. But then it just kind of repeats 2 of the previous level themes, being another desert and another town. Almost nearing the end, we start level 6 back in the village from the first stage, though it feels really distinct from last time, with a lot more targets than there were and more interesting places that they appear. Next is just a level of shooting enemies on a bridge. But to close off this level, the final segment introduces enemies that block your arrows, meaning you have to wait for them to throw your spear before you can attack them, or you can just blow them up. We begin level 7 underground. This first stage has some really smart target placements, where the targets move concurrently with penalty targets, meaning you have to wait for the right angle before you can hit the target. The rest of this level is pretty simple, just being a defender segment in the sky and a ranger segment in a temple, with both introducing a few new enemy types. Level 8 starts off with probably the most interesting target shooting stage, with Link on horseback firing at targets as the scene transitions from day to night. It definitely feels like it has a larger scope compared to some of the previous levels. The next stage takes place in the mountains and has us shooting at ice wolves, which what the heck, what did they ever do to us? What the fuck? But after that, this stage closes off with a full-on boss fight, where you have to land hits on the body while dodging attacks that send out swarms of bats. You can either dodge the attacks or create gaps to weave through them. Additionally, you're under a time limit, meaning you have to be quick. This was probably the most unexpected part of the whole game to me, since I'd never heard anyone mention the boss fights when talking about this game. And with that, we're in the final stretch. Level 9 begins with a round of shooting the goblins off of goats. This was probably the easiest stage to get a large combo on with the amount of enemies. Up next is a stage with an appearance from Skull Kid, who I didn't even know was in Twilight Princess. Then, last but not least, the final stage of the game is a fight with the fossil Skyward, another returning boss from Twilight Princess. In order to defeat it, you have to hit consecutive weak points on its hand and then its head, all while keeping enemies from attacking you. You have to combo its weak point twice in order to defeat it. Or you can just run out of time, which just means you gotta play through the whole level again. Whoops. But here we are again, back at the final boss, and after hitting its weak point and landing the final combo... And that's all. The stage ends, and then the game boots you back to the stage selected with no real conclusion. I checked online to see if there was any reward for getting all the platinum medals, but there doesn't seem to be. Kind of a shame that there was nothing at the end, but at the same time, did there ever really need to be? For a pack-in title for a piece of plastic in 2007, was it not enough for it to just be a fun little collection of shooting stages? I mean, yeah, maybe some pack-in titles have had insane amounts of content, but like, this game still holds up really well, and I'd recommend it if you can find it for cheap. You don't even need the zapper for it, it's literally just a piece of plastic. I'd give the game a score out of 10, but like, if you think this game sounds cool to you, then you should just go ahead and try it. It really doesn't matter if someone on YouTube tells you that it's good or not. And I really hope that some people do check out this game after watching this, both because it's good and because I have been recording and making this video for 8 months, and I've been so worried someone was going to beat me to the punch here. So that's it. That's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. This video probably took way too long to make. I've done video editing before, but nothing really this long or to this extent. So I'm really hoping the next one can be a bit easier. But since this is my first ever real video, it would be really helpful if you could subscribe or like. Oh my god, that sentence has left my lips. I don't really know how to end something like this, so... bye.